If a woman is in labor and has no way to get to a hospital, can she call an ambulance? Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the things we do. Childbirth. Well, assisting in childbirth. Absolutely. Please call an ambulance. That's one of the things we do, whether it's an EMT or a paramedic. I mean, I'm an EMT. We had a whole section on childbirth, the complications, how to do everything. Absolutely. It was a whole chapter in our book. And like, we did lectures on it. We did stations on it where we practiced the skills. We had one of our female instructors put on a thing where it simulated a baby coming out and everything, and we learned how to hold, we learned how to do everything. So absolutely, yeah. Please don't try to drive there while you're in labor. Please don't. Absolutely, call an ambulance and we'll take good care of you. Does the siren get annoying for paramedics? Not anymore, really. I mean, well, maybe, but the thing about it is, in the 70s and the 80s, they just took a van, stuck some lights on it, put a siren on top, and called it an ambulance. There wasn't much insulation. Now, they purposely really shield where the siren is from the passenger cab, so it's not nearly as the siren is really quiet when you're driving an ambulance or when you're inside an ambulance. The siren's really quiet. It used to be, it would fucking blare and, you couldn't hear, what? It was really loud. But now they build them specifically so that it's really loud for everyone else and really quiet. You'd be amazed at how quiet the siren is inside of the ambulance. Yeah, I mean, some paramedics may get annoyed by it, especially when you're outside of the ambulance. You'll hear on the scene, especially with cops, you'll hear someone go, kill your siren, because it's just like, it's fucking loud as shit. EMTs and paramedics. How does one treat a gunshot wound? Well, that's a very kind of generic question. There are a lot of different ways. All I'll say is make sure you look for the exit wound, and you never know what a bullet's going to do. So it could be anything. It could shatter a bone, it could just go through and through, it could still be in there, it could shatter an organ, it could put a hole in something, it could do anything. So the way you treat a gunshot wound, it depends on where you're hit, what got hurt, and all I'll say is remember, look for the exit wound. Do healthcare professionals become numb to people's pain? As a healthcare professional, you have to develop a way to distance yourself from what you're doing, what people are going through, so that you don't take anything personally and you don't take shit home with you. Of course you do. You can't not. But the one big thing you can't do is let a call affect you while you're on the call. Will you think about it later? Fuck yeah, you'll think about it later. But the biggest thing is you can't let what's going on right now affect you, because there are people that depend on you. And you can't, Saving Private Ryan, you can't sort of zone out and not be able to do anything. You can't do that. There are people that really depend on you right now. So, but yeah, it's just about, you need to develop a way to distance yourself, not make all your patients your friends. You have to have this morbid thing of like, well, can't save them all. Because if you don't, you will not last long. You'll end up in therapy. You might kill yourself. It's a horrible, horrible thing to have on your conscience, the thousands of deaths that you'll witness as a medic. Humans weren't meant to bear that kind of burden, so you would just have to make sure it doesn't become that burden. You have to make sure you don't spend all day, all night thinking about the things you saw, and not just the death, not just the people you saw die, but the horrible things you heard and saw and smelled and everything else. But do you become numb to people's pain? No. It may seem that way, but it's just a defense mechanism. It's not like you just don't, you become that medic, I don't feel anything, like in movies. That doesn't happen. It may seem like you're numb to people's pain, but you're not. You just need to get that under control and learn to not let it affect you. Because if it affects you, you can't do your job. My sole intent is to improve the world. I have been drawn to being a doctor, paramedic, nurse, firefighter, or cop because I want to save lives. What career should I choose? That's an admirable goal, obviously. And nobody can answer this question but you. Those things you listed are just vastly different one from the other. One thing I'll say is, if you choose to become one of these things, I'm trying to word this so that I don't sound like a douchebag. It's great to go into it with the Judy Hopps mentality, like, I'm going to improve the world, I'm going to make it a better place. That's great. That's absolutely wonderful. And don't ever lose that. But when you start taking, let's say you become an EMT like I did, or, on the way to becoming a paramedic, because you listed paramedic. When you start taking these classes and hearing from your instructors and hearing from the people, the EMTs and the paramedics that come to help, your class, to act as patients or just sort of hang around, give you advice, answer questions, that sort of thing. It really is wise to deal with the realistic part of what you're doing. I was very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I went into EMT school. Like that. I'm going to be an EMT and I'm going to rush in and save lives and do it. And everyone thinks that who goes to become an EMT. And I'm not saying that isn't what we do, but through hearing, stories and just like truths from our instructors, from other EMTs, from my EMS management class, from stuff like that, it's very important to realize what we're actually doing and what we're actually there for. Things like realizing how little money EMTs and paramedics make. Realizing how little the general public gives a shit about EMS. And realizing that you're not going to change that. You're not going to change how much we get paid, and you're not going to change how much the public doesn't give a shit and doesn't pull over for ambulances, I don't even really know what point I'm trying to make. I'm just saying, and I don't know how to word it either, but it's like, it's great. That's a wonderful thing to say. I want to improve the world, and I'm going to become one of these things to improve the world. That's wonderful, and hold on to that. And we all do, but I was very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going into EMT class, and when I became an EMT, and then I took more advanced classes, and then I did this and that, I came out with a much more grounded and sort of realistic view of what it is we do exactly. I guess to sum it up, there's a chapter in one of my books about EMS where it's like 25 things they didn't teach you in medic school but should have. And one of them is, the chapter's called like, We Don't Save Lives. And it's like, more often than not, this vision of like zooming in, code 3, lights and sirens, saving somebody's life, and they jump up and the crowd cheers and save someone. That's like really rare, considering. The way David puts it in his book is, most of the time, of course we do that, but most of the time you'll find you're functioning as a grief sponge. You're just there to be there. I'm not even sure what my point is with all of that, but that's what this question made me feel. But more to the point, doctor, paramedic, nurse, firefighter, cop. Because what really tipped me off there, what really sort of set that off in me was how you mentioned you want to improve the world, should you become a cop? Well, the thing about that is, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to think that. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be cynical or something, but like when you become a cop, if you become a cop, let's say, you'll quickly find that improving the world is not what cops are there to do. Cops aren't there to protect you. They aren't there to improve the world and keep everyone safe. They're there as a byproduct of the legal system. They go and catch criminals. They're law enforcement. They just make sure everyone's following the rules. I'll just say this. I had a friend who became a cop in Minnesota, I think. Because he said, I joined the police force because I wanted to protect people. I wanted to keep people safe. I wanted to step in front of someone who was helpless and about to be hurt by somebody who was going to take advantage of them. And I wanted to help people. I wanted to run into burning buildings, and I wanted to do this and that. And he was a cop for 2 years, and then he quit. And he said, because I realized that's not what the police force is. I realized that's not what it's for, and that's not what it does. For some reason, people think that's what it does, but that's not what it does. It's not what the police force is there for. What law enforcement does is different than this idealized view of what the police are in movies and TV shows and in the general public's mind and stuff like that. So I'll just say that. How do EMTs select which hospital to take an emergency patient? At the end of the day, it's your choice. We can't force you to accept our treatment. We can't force you to let us transport you to a hospital, and we can't force you to go to a specific hospital. It's your choice. If you want to go to a specific hospital, part of my spiel as an EMT was always, in the event that I have to take you to the hospital, is there one you prefer to go to? Because it's your choice at the end of the day. That being said, depending on what your injuries or your problem is, I have to take you to a specific hospital. Now, you can insist with all your might that I take you to a different one. If you insist enough, I'll go, okay, fine. We'll pull up to that hospital, and then they'll say, why did you bring this patient here? And kick us out and send us to the real hospital. For example, if you're having a stroke, we have to go to a stroke center. Period. Geisinger has a stroke center. General does not. So if you want to go to General, no, we have to go to Geisinger. If you insist enough, okay, I'll drive you to General. And when I get there, they'll go, go to Geisinger. They can't do anything for you there. So like, okay, we can go there if you want, but they're just going to kick us out. And it's just going to be more time with you having your arteries blocked, you know what I mean? So like, it's up to you. If you're a trauma patient, we're going to Geisinger or CMC. If you want to go to General, I'm sorry, but we can't. You know, it's your choice, but General doesn't have a trauma bay, so there's literally nothing they can do for you. So it would just be a waste of time. But again, always remember, it's your body, it's yours. You know, we aren't cops. We can't force you to get in the ambulance. Okay, there's sometimes where we can have a cop force you in the ambulance in certain psychiatric situations, but that's really rare. If you're just hurt, hey, it's up to you. If you tell us to leave, we leave. Now, obviously, it's a huge legal liability for us. If you called us, we got there, and then you're like, no, I don't want to go. We are going to try as hard as we can to convince you to go to the hospital. Not just because it's a good idea, and we want you to be healthy and everything like that. We want to help you, but also huge legal liability for us. Huge. We have to get a refusal of care, but even if we get that, you still can sue us. And it's happened. So we're going to try as hard as we can to get, I really think as a medical professional, you really should let us take you to the hospital and get checked out and this and that. We're going to try and convince you as hard as we can. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. We can't make you. And if you want to go, if you want to go to a specific hospital, even if it's further away. But for me, and for like any, legally, you can go to whatever hospital you want. If you want to go to one that's further away, it's going to cost more. But, hey, that's fine. We'll take you there, sure. As long as it's a hospital that can accept you. But if you're, you have a broken leg and you don't want to go, you want to go to a specific, hey, sure, what the hell? Is becoming a paramedic through an EMT program as scary and intimidating as it seems? It is intimidating, and it is scary, and it is hard. And, at times it's a bit of a slog, and it is a big challenge. But, hey, I did it. So can you. It's very overwhelming because it's a big thing to want to be. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility you're taking on, and you're held to a very, very high standard. But if I can do it, you can do it. Is it illegal to impersonate a paramedic? Yes. EMT and paramedic are protected titles, which means if you call yourself one or advertise yourself as one and you're not, that's illegal. Just like doctor. A child gets into a bad accident and is awaiting care at the hospital. He or she will die soon without care, but the doctors are unable to reach the parent to obtain the necessary consent. What do? In that situation, the doctors do not need consent. Ordinarily, you do need parental consent, or you need, guardian consent, or, and I forget what the hell it's called, but there's this thing where someone who, if the parent or guardian isn't around, someone who can kind of vouch for that guardian, such as if their kids at school, the teacher can say, yes, you have my consent to treat this child. If they're at soccer practice and the parents are there, the coach can say, yes, you can treat this child, and that's consent. Ordinarily, you do have to get parental consent to treat someone under 18, but if the child is going to die without treatment and it is absolutely necessary, no doctor is going to let a kid die just because, we can't get mom on the phone, you know what I mean? No doctor, no healthcare provider, no human would do that, but more so legally, they're in the clear. Legally, there's a clause related to implied consent. As I mentioned in one of the other videos, there's this thing called implied consent. If we come upon you and you're unconscious, we have implied consent to treat you. The idea being, it's assumed that you want us to help you, even if maybe you don't. But it's assumed because you're unconscious, we can't ask you. It's assumed that you do want us to help you, and we will try our best to revive you. Yeah, but in that situation, morally and legally, they're in the clear to save that child's life. It doesn't matter that they can't get a hold of the parent. Especially from an accident, especially. I mean, they're going to treat first and then ask later. Is it true that when an ambulance has lights on but no siren, that someone on the ambulance is dead or has died? No. I'm not really sure where that particular rumor came from, but no, that's not true. That has nothing to do with it. A lot of ambulances, especially if there are multiple ambulances responding to a certain event, the rule always was only the lead vehicle has their siren on. It used to be because all the sirens were the same and it would just kind of become deafening. It would just be this big noise, and it's not such a great idea now because the problem is people, they hear a siren, they see lights, they pull over, hopefully. Ambulance passes. Okay, they start to pull out. And there's always, if there's a second ambulance coming, boom! And that's happened more times than you want to know. That's why a police escort for an ambulance isn't always the best idea, because people will pull over for the cop. Once the cop passes, they go, oh, okay, I'll get back in traffic. And the ambulance they're escorting, you know, it's just up to the driver's discretion, now, whether you want to switch the siren off or, you know, just to not have it so monotonous. And like, if the siren's always on, people will get used to the sound. People are already used to the sound of a siren, you know, in an emergency vehicle. So it's like, if you just keep it on for an hour and a half, people will just get used to it. It won't grab people's attention. That's why a lot of cop cars and ambulances and stuff in New York City have that it's called the sweeper, where it goes and you can like feel it shaking the entire ground. You know, it's like one of those acoustic weapons they use in warfare, but just like toned down a lot. It's just all to grab your attention because you don't want something to become so commonplace. It's like trucks with backup beepers. People have gotten too used to them. Now they have cars that give white noise instead of a beep. They go because it's, first of all, it's easier to locate where it is, and also it grabs your attention. It's like, what the fuck is that? Everyone's used to the backup beeper, you know, and it's the same idea. But anyway, yeah, it's up to no. Short answer, no. Usually, it just means, usually, like, if an ambulance is going to the scene, code 3, with a siren, when they're going back, usually they just have the lights going. Until they hit an intersection or something, then they'll give a couple yelps on the siren to let everyone know there's an emergency vehicle coming. How can you differentiate between the sirens of police vehicles, ambulances, and fire brigades? Fire trucks use non-electric sirens. So that's a very specific sound. It sounds more like an air raid or civil defense siren. Ambulances use normal electronic sirens. Police vehicles use the same sirens as ambulances, but cops usually drive at 12 billion miles per hour. And ambulances usually drive pretty slowly for safety. So if you hear an ambulance siren and also that was a cop. If it's a normal electrical siren and it's going pretty slowly, or like medium speed, that was an ambulance. If it's a non-electric siren, it's a fire truck or a rescue truck. What are ambulance paramedics' most frequent causes of disciplinary measures? Paperwork! Not filing and reporting stuff properly, not checking the right boxes, not doing the right paperwork, not doing the right run report, not doing the right run sheet, not mentioning all the right words you're supposed to in a patient care report. Oh my God, paperwork. Holy shit. This is also related to that other question where it's like, I want to, change the world and become a cop. It's like, I mean, most of what cops do is paperwork. It is so much goddamn paperwork. Oh my God. Which countries have free ambulance system? None. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You're paying for everything. If they take $300 out of your paycheck every time you get paid, it's not free. Why do paramedics cover dead bodies with white sheets at the scene of an accident? Both for the person who has died and for the passersby. It's to maintain dignity, and you don't want the world to see you all fucked up and with your face exploding and shit like that. You know, it's to maintain the person who's died. It's to maintain their dignity so that people aren't staring at them and carnage and whatever else. And it's also to protect passersby. You don't want to see that. There are some things. One of the most senior instructor I had, who's been in EMS since before it began, is like 50 years, and he's also a nurse and all this different stuff. He just put it perfectly when he said, there are some things you don't want people to see. You know, and that's one of the things that also gets drilled into us. It's like, an MVA and someone's trapped and something's broken, they can't get out of the car. Remember, you see that all the time. We see EMTs, paramedics, firemen, cops. We see that all the time. The general public doesn't. So for that person, not only were they just in a crash, not only are they in physical pain, not only this and that, but this is the first time in their life they've ever been this close to some kind of major catastrophe, let alone it happening to them. So we see it all the time, but remember, they don't. So they're going to be more fucked up by it. Emergency first responders. What should a civilian do when they see a car accident? If safe, pull over to the side of the road safely, a safe distance. Be very careful. If there's debris, if there's stuff going on, if there's the possibility for another accident because there are cars in the road, be very careful for what we call fluids down. If there's gasoline, if there's stuff, be very, very careful. Pull over where safe. And if you don't have any medical training and if you don't know what to do, call 911. please do not keep driving. Get out your phone and call 911. It's going to take like 3 or 4 minutes to get to the point where the dispatcher is going to ask you, what mile marker? Do not look outside of your window at the mile marker you are now flying past and tell them that one. You could have gone 4 or 5 miles. On the interstate, 70 miles an hour, you could have gone 4 or 5 miles away from the accident. And now we're going to be looking around like dipshits. Where's the fucking wreck? They said it was here. If you really want to help, pull over as safely as possible, a good safe distance from the accident, call 911. And if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't have any training, don't do anything else. If you want, if the people are there, if they're conscious, if they're walking around, if they're stuck, if they're this or that, let them know I'm on the phone with 911. Help is on the way. Let them know that. But the biggest thing you can do is call 911, get us there. And please, if you don't know what you're doing, I know you want to help, I know. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to make it worse. So just the thing you can do is call 911 and reassure the people who are hurt. Don't worry, help is on the way.